So, hi everyone. Thank you for coming and listening to my talk. So, I'm going to be talking about my experience of imposter syndrome and sort of how I dealt with it and how the HSST has helped me as well. In my fourth year, so I'm in the same year as Stephen, of the HSST, and I'm in molecular pathology of acquired disease, which mainly means cancer, really. And shock horror, I am not a clinical scientist, but I am a biomedical scientist. And I think 2021 was maybe the first year where they accepted biomedical scientists onto the HSST program. So this is really where I felt my imposter syndrome very strongly, because I think I was probably the only biomedical scientist um, on the whole of the HSST. And I sort of have come from a different background. So I have a lot of experience in cellular pathology and histology. And then as cellular pathology sort of started to change and molecular pathology sort of started to get more routine and required for uh, cancer diagnosis, I moved into molecular pathology, and that's how I came to start on the HSST. So when I started, and everyone, you go up for your induction and everyone has to introduce themselves, and everyone's like, oh, hello, I'm a clinical scientist, and I work in this area and this. And I really felt like I was very inferior, and I would introduce myself. I'd be like, oh, I'm just a biomedical scientist, and I'd hang my head almost in shame, and I felt a bit inadequate. I don't know how many of you work in sort of laboratory pathology, but there is sort of a difference between a clinical scientist and a biomedical scientist, and maybe there's a little bit of rivalry between them. So there was sort of that to contend with as well, and I did feel like, yeah, a bit ashamed that I was not as not as highly regarded as a clinical scientist. So let's just have a look and what imposter syndrome really is. It's a feeling of inadequacy that persists despite evidence of success. So that's definitely how I felt. I mean, I've worked my way up through the Institute of Biomedical Scientists. I'm more than qualified, and I, obviously was accepted onto the HSST, but I did still have those real deep feelings that, that I wasn't good enough. And yeah, I felt like incompetent and I didn't know enough. And I sort of shouldn't have been there. So I'd almost introduce myself. I wouldn't even say I was a biomedical scientist. I'd just say I was deputy operations lead or something, along those lines. So I could avoid that part. So the people who are most likely to experience imposter syndrome are usually high performing professionals such as doctors. And I would regard anyone who takes the nous to apply for the HSST is a high performing professional. So I think we're all high performing professionals, and I think we will all experience imposter syndrome definitely at some point. And Stephanie and Stephen gave great talks, and they talked about networking, and I think that probably is a great example where you might feel imposter syndrome, because as you are on your journey of HSST, you're going to have to start networking with the consultants, people who are experts in their areas of research. So when you go to do your research project, you're going to meet some sort of real intellects and, people that have great knowledge. And I think that those sort of instances, where you do feel that imposter syndrome, like, oh my God, almost like you put them on a pedestal. These people are amazing. And you don't feel that sort of you're worthy, shall we say. But I think the HSST gives you the chance to help develop yourself as an individual, to overcome a lot of these feelings, and also just time and as you gain more experience. So I'm not sure, you're probably all at different stages on the HSST, but, the A modules help you to understand your values and behaviors. So, it's not always just about how much you know or what you know. It's sort of what you're bringing, like your authenticity. Are you honest, hardworking? So those sort of things, can help, to reframe the situation and switch off your internal critic. You've got all this stuff going on in your head, like, oh my God, I don't know this, I don't know this, but no one else can see that. So, their perception of you is probably totally different to what you're thinking. And your self-identity will also be changing. Stephen, I think someone was explaining, and someone asked a question about, as a first year HSST as opposed to a fourth or fifth, your self-identity is changing from a clinical scientist or a biomedical scientist into a consultant role. So it's about navigating that change as well. Will help you sort of overcome some of those feelings of imposter syndrome. And with the A modules, you do like the action learning sets where you have very small groups and, you talk about problems that you have. And I think that really helped me because even though I felt inferior, I was just a biomedical scientist. Actually, the people that I was in the group with, they were no different. They still all had the same problems, and it sort of, you can see, oh, okay, well, I'm not alone, and, people have these feelings as well. It's not just me. And it's important to sort of reflect on your experience as well, and sort of why are you feeling the way you are, what sort of things can help. And another thing, part of your portfolio is you have multi-source feedback, which you give to your peers and colleagues. And I actually found that quite surprising especially because I had started a newer role within molecular pathology. I'd come from cell path. And, it was actually quite nice because people, were very impressed that I had such a different knowledge and I could bring my experiences from a different background. So that sort of made me feel a bit better. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm not such an idiot, or, I'm not as inferior as I feel, because people actually do have positive things to say about me. So that was also quite helpful. So it's really just reframing the situation. So having the tools to sort of think about it in a different way, and you'll grow and develop and feel less intimidated. And as your knowledge grows and experience, because I think sometimes a lot of imposter syndrome is when you're thrown into a new experience and you don't really know much, that's when you feel, a bit vulnerable. So I think growing and developing as you get more experience, you'll feel less like an imposter. And you're bringing your own experiences. Like, everyone has their own experiences, and I think if you know you can all add something to the team. And sometimes it is like, embrace that discomfort of feeling like an imposter, because maybe you don't know everything, and use that as a chance to learn and learn off other people who maybe you admire, or so I think that's sort of a good tool as well, and that will help build your resilience, and you will be more comfortable being uncomfortable. And be honest and authentic. If you don't know something, or you want to find something out, be honest and just say, oh, listen, I really don't know. That's fine. Because no one knows everything, and being perfect is boring. So, we don't all want to have to know everything, because it is a bit, boring. So, let's just face the reality. You're not alone. We all have imposter syndrome, and everyone's learning. Like, you don't just finish the HSST, or you don't just finish your degree and then you know everything, or, so I think it's sort of that continual learning. We've all got our own experiences. We've all come from different backgrounds, and it doesn't mean that you can't do the role that you're in. It just maybe means you just need some more experience, or, just more learning. And also, individuals may feel this about you, like they might think that you're amazing. So, and they might feel like an imposter when they're talking to you. So, yeah, just some things to keep in mind.